We're just gonna give it a second and let the waiting room clear. If you can make sure you're muted as you enter. All right, good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board, the BCB. Today is April 10th, 2024. Please note that today will be both the BCB's transactional and voting hearing. Today's hearing is being conducted pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. This is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review some procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Thank you, Jasmine. Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm Chair of the Boston Cannabis Board, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Commissioner Lisa Holmes, Commissioner Gabriel Camacho, Commissioner John Smith, Commissioner Ramon Soto, and Commissioner Sonal Gandhi.
Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. My name is Jasmine Nguyen, and I am the Boston Cannabis Board Manager. We are also joined by Luke Sandhouse, who is the Cannabis Licensing Specialist. I will begin by calling each item in the order they appear on the agenda. I will then ask who is present on behalf of the proposal before us. For today's hearing, we only have one amendment to an already approved establishment and a few old and new business items. We do not have any new license applications being heard today. The amendment proposal will have 5 minutes to present to the BCB, followed by questions from the board members. We will then take public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives, followed by the general public. You may use the chat function or raise hand function to request to testify. After we hear the testimony, we'll move to a vote. Each board member has the ability to grant with conditions, defer, reject without prejudice, which means an applicant can return anytime with an application at the same location, or reject with prejudice, which means the applicant cannot reapply at the same location for 1 year. We will begin with the amendment. The licensee is Stone's Throw Cannabis LLC, DBA Firebrand Cannabis. The license premise is 727 Atlantic Avenue, Chinatown, Leather District. The license type is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary and courier license. The request is for a change of ownership interest by adding investors to acquire various percentages of ownership of Stone's Throw Cannabis LLC. The requested changes will not change the licensee's equity status. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
David Rabinovitz and Blake Mensing.
Okay. You have 5 minutes. You may begin.
I believe Blake was going to speak. Blake, you there?
Yep. So yeah, this is, as you surmised, Jasmine, to update ownership. We have a series of new investors that are subject to convertible notes, wherein their equity won't be granted unless and until the Boston Cannabis Board approves their admission. So also, as you said, it will not change our majority ownership status as a social equity company. And that's really the long and the short of it.
All right.
All 5 minutes.
Sorry. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions?
I do. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to testify, but I'm curious, but we've been notified that there's a pending lawsuit about this. Is that something you want to?
Sure. So yeah, we filed suit a little bit ago. And because of the pendency of litigation, we can't really get into it, but it doesn't impact this hearing in my view. We're simply updating the board with our proposed new owners. The lawsuit is not about the new owners.
Any other?
I might have some more questions afterwards, but I'll let the other commissioners go first.
Okay. Commissioner Camacho?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Smith?
Thanks, Jasmine. None at this time, but I reserve to come back maybe.
Commissioner Holmes?
I guess I'm the only one with the questions. I I'm completely confused about the lawsuit. So I've read it, but I don't. So are Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Finney being sued, or are they suing?
We filed suit against them and they have
Who is we? Blake, who is we?
Stone's Throw Cannabis, the entity.
Okay, so the entity Stone's Throw is filing a lawsuit against Mr. Finney and Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, has filed, and Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Finney have asserted counterclaims.
Is it possible to tell us what this lawsuit is about?
There is some confidentiality matters. Our attorney has filed a motion to impound the complaint, and that is stemming from, again, confidentiality matters. So the court is yet to rule on that. So yeah, because it's an open piece of litigation, we can't really discuss it.
So how can we effectively vote on changing ownership? We don't know what this lawsuit is about.
May
The
I?
lawsuit has no bearing on this.
It may not have any
change.
bearing in your mind, but I need to know what the lawsuit is about.
Commissioner Holmes.
Hold on.
the
Mr. Rosin, hold on, please.
The request, Commissioner Holmes, is to add additional investors. So the request we've made isn't about Finney and Lawrence. It's
Okay.
about, we have some new small investors who've come in. They are all below the cannabis control threshold. Jasmine had requested of us information whether we had notified the commission, and we explained because they're in aggregate, they're all below, they're individually and in aggregate below the 10%. We're not required to go through the disclosures with the commission, but what we're looking for today is to bring the new investors in. This isn't about Lawrence or Finney today.
Mr. Jeffrey, I know you're representing Eric Lawrence, and
I'm still kind of
so
confused.
you'll get a chance to speak. We're just gonna let the commissioners finish with their question. You'll get a chance to speak.
Both of them have were wrongly deprived of their ownership rights by the entity. So there's a lawsuit in my little mind here, the way I'm reading. Mr. Finney and Mr. Lawrence are suing the entity because they feel they're not being fairly compensated or acknowledged as owners. Is that what it is?
Correct.
They are not owners.
Right.
Pardon me?
They are not owners.
What are they?
They're litigants.
Okay, I'm a let the chair see if
We
she
do
can-
have their attorney, Eric Lawrence, and James Finney attorney, and I do see James Finney, so maybe they can clear up what their position is when we get to that point.
I just have one question for Blake and his team. What, if any, harm will come if we decide not to vote on this change of ownership today or until we get more information about this lawsuit?
Our investors who are expecting to have ownership after investing money under a convertible note will be left in limbo. And my view is that the Boston Cannabis Board rules require and have a gatekeeping power of who may come into an entity. But all we're trying to do is update who we would like to be a current owner. So whether there's litigation pending or not, the truth of the matter is Mr. Finney and Mr. Lawrence are not present tense owners of this company. So we're just seeking that the board update that reality.
Yeah,
So they're not receiving any profits, they're not involved in any decision-making?
They paid
not
no
paid.
money and they are not involved in it. The investors, whether the investors come in, have no bearing on Finney and Lawrence, whether they were owners, were not owners, are owners, or are not owners. They're literally, they are purely two totally separate issues. These were additional investors that came in, and we structured it with convertible notes, mindful of the fact that we cannot bring in a new equity owner until we present it to the BCB.
Okay, who isn't Mr. Finney listed as the equity owner here on this license?
They were originally listed, Lawrence, Finney, and I'm not sure if the other two were. We started with 8 social equity applicants. In two of them, one didn't qualify for the BCB, one didn't have sufficient time. That brought us down to 6 prospective folks. And Lawrence and Finney were, in fact, 2 of those 6. They never
So
paid
your
their
equity
fee and they
status
never
is not
signed their
changing.
documents.
That's
So-
what I was gonna ask, Commissioner. So will their equity status will change?
No, we're still, the remaining 4 social equity folks own 51% of the company.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So this was not, there was even well, I see the problem is I'd love to I'm itching to answer a bunch of your questions, but the attorneys have indicated because of the impoundment and the confidentiality, we've been instructed not to step in discussing it.
Well, I don't actually understand how you think you're gonna get a vote and we don't have all the information.
Because you have a role in approving new.
Don't tell me what I got a role in doing.
I'm,
But
I believe
it's because we see this as what we're presenting today is to bring new investors in, which we would need regardless of the Finney or Lawrence issue. Their issue is that they believe that they should have an ownership stake, and we don't, and that's what the courts are going to decide. But the issue of the new investors coming in have no bearing upon Finney or Lawrence. The new investors wouldn't, if Finney and Lawrence were owners, the new investors would not impact their ownership interest in any way. It's just raising capital to cover the cost of getting the store open.
Mr. Rabinowitz, are they equity investors to new ones?
That's what I was gonna ask you.
The new folks,
Yes.
they're not yet. If you vote yes, then they will become automatically pursuant to the convertible notes. They lent us money, and the structure of the transaction is it's under a loan agreement that will convert to equity upon BCB approval, but not until.
I still think we need more information, but thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And Commissioner Holmes, I apologize. It's just our hands are tied with the attorneys and the impoundment issues with the court, and we're trying to be respectful of that.
I understand.
Commissioner Gandhi, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. So I'm looking at the letter that was sent in to the BCB on March 8th, dated March 8th. I just want to understand the last few sentences. It says we're also seeking to update to reflect the following. And it mentioned the 2, Eric Lawrence and James Finney. So I'm wondering if that needs to be amended because I'm not sure why that would be even presented to the board if your
So-
position is that we're looking to add new folks. So I'm just not sure that I'm comfortable voting on this with that
I'm
in
happy to answer
the
that.
application. Thank you.
Well, the form that we were required to fill out requires that we list all the owners. And if you look at the form, the table that we submitted, I believe there is a column that shows what the ownership is versus what it was proposed. And I think it would be improper of us to have listed Finney and Lawrence as owners if they are not owners. Things never got completed, so they never became owners.
Yeah, I think the issue is that when you originally submitted the application, you had them as equity owners.
Yes, we had
Correct.
expected that whole process would have played out properly, and they would have, and everybody would have done what they were supposed to do, and they would have become owners. Unfortunately, issues came up, which is again why we're in court.
Right, but when it was submitted to the BCB and you got approval, they were part of the application process. They were
Yes,
listed owners.
absolutely.
So that's where it's coming off, where you're saying we're not removing them as owners, but technically in our eyes, they were owners.
Understood.
So that's what the
No, I get it, Jasmine.
Okay.
Today, what we're really, our focus today is to bring in the investors as owners.
Commissioner Soto, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Any other follow-up questions from the board before we move to public testimony? All right, we will move to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives. And if there are no elected officials or representatives, we will move to public testimony. Jeffrey, I know you have your hand raised. You can give your testimony. Please state your name and
Thank you so much. This is Jeff Rosen, and I am the lawyer for James Finney and Eric Lawrence. They take the position, and it is in writing to the board, that they are owners. They take the position that they are being wrongfully deprived of ownership. When you have 100% of a company and you try to give some of that company to supposed new owners, my question is, who is being diluted? Is Mr. Rabinovitz or Mr. Mensing proposing that they give up their equity for these new owners? We've heard from them that they are absolutely planning to deny Finney and Lawrence their ownership interest. That's what we're litigating.
Right.
That's inappropriate. If they do deny them that interest and give it to somebody else, whether on a convertible note or otherwise, they've now put their ownership interest in the hands of yet another third party, making an utter mess of the situation. So without Mr. Rabinovitz, Mr. Mensing saying that they are giving up their own ownership to give ownership to this other third parties, I'm very concerned, and I would ask that the board deny this application.
May I respond?
Sure.
Any ownership to investors comes out of Blake and I exclusively. It is in it is in all the governing documents of the entity that the social equity folks are not diluted. And if you were to look at the table that we submitted, it shows that the dilution comes from Blake and I. That is the whole structure of this. The SCs have 51%. When we started originally with the concept there would be 8 SCs, they each would have 6.375%, I believe it was. When Ala didn't have the time and Judy didn't qualify for the BCB and it went to 6, then the math was it would be 6 times 8.5. And when it went down to 4, it's 4 times 12.75. Anything that comes out of the investors comes from Blake and I. Anything that comes, any equity that's distributed beyond that 51%, Blake and I handle all that dilution, not the SCs. And that's in the governing documents. Their equity is non-dilutable.
May I respond to that?
Briefly.
Thank you. With a quick clarifying question, do the so-called 4 existing SEs that you do recognize have the right to vote on what you're proposing? And if so, why wouldn't Lawrence and Finney have the right to have a say? Because in our view, they are rightful owners.
And as in litigation, as you're aware, sir, there are always 2 views. There's the plaintiff's view, which Stone's Throw has, and there's the defendant's view, which Finney, Lawrence, and yourself have. And I respectfully suggest that's a question that is best resolved in the Superior Court.
Well, if that is the case, and Lawrence and Finney would have the right to vote on whether there should be these additional owners and this additional equity, they're being deprived of that right by way of this request of the board.
Okay, and again, they are not owners, sir, and I would respectfully say that's going to be decided by a Superior Court judge. And you asked the question, which I answered pretty clearly and directly. The dilution was your concern, right? That's what you raised. I'll state it for the record very clearly because it's in the documents. All the dilution comes out of Mensing and Rabinovitz. It does not come out of the SEs. If we have to raise additional equity beyond what we're doing right now, it comes out of Blake and myself. The whole structure of this transaction is the SCs will control it and own 51%, and they have no risk of dilution. That's in the documents, and you have them. So I think, respectfully, we've answered that concern.
Okay, we're gonna move back to see if I see Commissioner Holmes has her hands raised.
I do. And I was going to ask, do we have a court date set already?
When you say a court date, do you mean for a trial, Commissioner?
Or for whatever you all are going to court for? Do you have a date to resolve this?
It's way too early to have, quote, a date, but no, hear me out. Just to be fair, we filed the complaint. They have filed an answer, And now there are hearings that I'm not sure, I'll let Blake weigh in about whether there's a hearing date, but there's some back and forth on the impoundment because there are confidential issues that are in the complaints that can't be made public because of the confidentiality. And
So
I'm
the
not
answer is
certain
no.
that a judge has
We
ruled
don't
on
have
that.
a court date yet. So the answer is no, we don't have a court date yet. Okay.
Well, when you say, if you're saying we have filed, so we are this is under the
A
jurisdiction.
court date to resolve the issue is what I'm.
That's not going to happen for a year. The court
Okay,
date to resolve
thank
the
you.
issue would be a trial.
That's the answer I needed. It's not gonna
Okay.
happen for a year. That's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions from the board members?
I have a comment. In my mind, there is still a question as to whether or not Finney and Lawrence are owners now. And I am confused as to what percentages are being shared with us today. Some of them don't seem to have been disclosed to the board before. So I am not prepared to move forward on this without further information. I need more information about these agreements you're talking about your interests going up, your percentages going up, but your interests going down. I don't have enough information.
If I may,
Chair
My
Joyce, could
thoughts.
the percentages are listed in that table that we submitted.
it's a,
I don't know
yeah,
if
the
that helps.
percentages are what we're requesting to be updated. So they'll
You
only
want to
take
go
effect.
from, you want to go from 16.25 to 18.625?
No, our equity is going down if the board were to approve the investors subject to a convertible note. So 51% is owned by the 4 social equity members who signed their documents and paid the fee. And
Right there,
David and
Karen, question, 2 of them are Lawrence and Finney.
they did not.
No, they never signed the documents or paid the fee.
Okay.
All right, any other comments from the board members, or is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter?
Can you share those documents with us? What they were supposed to sign and didn't sign?
We'll have to ask our attorney that,
Yeah.
but I
think we
believe
need to-
so.
All right, seeing no, sorry.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ms.
Mhm.
One comment on that. Mr. Finney and Mr. Lawrence made comments to the documents they were supposed to sign, assuming that they were good faith comments. They would have been signed, but then they were frozen out.
Can you share those with us?
Again, I would,
Again, as a regulator, it's very difficult to wrap my head around what is going on, and it feels as if stuff is not being disclosed to the board that should be. So whatever you can share would be most helpful.
we will act in good faith to do so promptly.
All right. We can move to a vote now. Chairwoman Joyce, do you want to vote?
Yes, I make a motion to defer the vote on this.
All right, is there a timeline or when? Till we get additional?
I don't have a timeline, because I don't know what we're gonna receive. If we could just
Defer until we receive updated documents.
I'm gonna look at, I think Commissioner Holmes might have a timeline in mind.
Commissioner Holmes?
My suggestion was gonna be, we don't vote on this until they finish with this court hearing, because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Right, so you want to put forth a motion to defer until the court case is resolved?
That would be my motion. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there a second? Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Gandhi, are you in favor? Okay. All right, and none opposed, so this matter will be deferred until the court case is resolved.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, we will move to old and new business. The first one is Happy Valley at 220 McCullough Highway, East Boston. They're requesting a 1-day extension of hours for April 19th and April 20th. They're requesting to open at 8 a.m. as opposed to their 10 a.m. opening, and they want to close at their normal 10 p.m. closing. Are there any questions?
I have no questions.
All right. Chairwoman Joyce.
I vote to approve the amendment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right,
Aye.
none opposed. The amendment is granted. The next amendment we have is Mayflower at 230 Harvard Avenue. They are applying for a one-day extension of hours for 4/20. The applicant was requesting to open at 8 a.m. as opposed to their 9 a.m. opening. Chairwoman Joyce,
Vote to approve the amendment?
there a second? Commissioner Holmes, all in
Second.
favor? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. So the amendment is granted as requested. And the final item, which just needs acknowledgement from the board, the licensee is Community Growth Partners, licensed premises 591 Albany Street. This is a co-located medical and recreational dispensary. And we are in receipt of correspondence from the licensee stating that they will cease operations as a medical treatment center at this location. The licensee will continue to operate as a marijuana retailer only at this time. Chairwoman Joyce?
I acknowledge it, but I do have a question.
Yes.
You have two separate HCA's?
No, they're one HCA.
Okay, so we have to revise that?
Yes.
Okay. Acknowledged.
Second.
Oh. Approved.
All in favor? All right, the
Acknowledged.
correspondence is acknowledged. All right, those were all the matters before the board today. The board's next transactional hearing will take place on May 15th at 1 p.m. Thank you all for attending and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.